1837 AD, 57:31 AM. Wilkinson released his Manners and Customs of the Ancient Egyptians. He being a renowned Egyptologist, this remained the textbook on ancient Egypt for decades. British Colonel Richard William Howard Vyse received permission to excavate at the Great Pyramid and Sphinx from Muhammad Ali of Egypt. Vyse appointed a civil engineer named John Perring to carry on the excavations while he himself was frequently away. The Giza project excavated the tons of rubble left behind by the Turks and Egyptians, who quarried away the white limestone casing blocks from the monument after the earthquake of 1356. For centuries, scholars had doubted and debated the existence of this beautiful white garment described by Herodotus, Strabo, Diodorus, and others. But in 1837, the British expedition discovered some of these amazingly perfect 20-ton blocks at the lowest foundation of the structure still in situ. Archaeologists and engineers have marvelled over the precise symmetry of the smooth casing blocks, with their 0.1% tolerance on its surfaces. Vyse would later go on to publish his Operations Carried On at the Pyramid of Giza, 1837 AD. Amazingly, this parallels the year 1837 BC, when, as found in CHRONICON 1, the sage Abraham was in Egypt studying the inscriptions that were found upon the surface casing blocks of the Great Pyramid, which is also the subject of Lost Scriptures of Giza. The parallel is deepened by the fact that in 1837 AD, the Englishman T. M. Lucas created a series of phonetic symbols, embossed, that could be understood by blind readers by touch. In this year he translated the New Testament of the Bible into this symbolic language for the blind. Just as Abraham has translated the phonetic inscriptions on the pyramid, which became the core fundamental knowledge buried in the most ancient cosmological, religious and historical text on this planet, the Vedas, the Sumerian and Babylonian tablet epics, the Egyptian fragments that became the Book of the Dead, and so many others that also found their way into the Old Testament. Using gunpowder to unblock the southern shaft, Vyse's men, one specifically named R.J. Hill, discovered an iron plate in the shaft of the king's chamber. It was 1 foot long and 4 inches wide, an inch thick. It had been embedded inside the masonry at the far end of the shaft. In 1989, scientists found that the strange plate had been smelted at a temperature of 1,000 degrees. Amazingly, these discoveries at the Great Pyramid, which stood at that and this date at 203 levels of masonry, was exactly 203 years before the global disasters that will ruin the modern world in 2040 AD with the transit of Phoenix. Colonel Vyse is also responsible for a devastating forgery that has crippled Egyptology. Before 1837, the ancient monument had remained bare of any Egyptian hieroglyphics. Not even a mummy was interred within the structure. In fact, as readers of CHRONICON 1 know, the Giza complex is much older than Egyptian civilization, and the Egyptians themselves left records that they had found the pyramids buried in sand. Then they spent 1,000 years trying to copy them to no avail. High in the structure, tucked into a relieving chamber, Colonel Vyse painted an incorrect cartouche for what he thought would be interpreted as the god Khufu, knowing that it was a theory that Khufu built the structure. Vyse was catapulted into instant fame for the discovery, but many scholars have since admitted it a forgery. In 1837, the Japanese saw a ship approach their shores with a flag they had never seen, the red, white and blue stars and stripes of America. The US ship was returning Japanese sailors who were found adrift in the Pacific. Adhering to their isolationist stance, the Japanese opened fire with cannons, driving the Americans off. 1. The discoverers, Borston. 2. Egypt, child of Atlantis. 3. Atlantis and the kingdom of the Neanderthals. 4. A short history of the world. 1838 AD, 57:32 AM. In violation of the Supreme Court decision in Worcester versus Georgia, 1832, General Winfield Scott led the army in the rounding up of 12,000 Cherokee Indians, men, women and children in Georgia, and marched them across North America to Oklahoma. This event has gone down in American history as the Trail of Tears, about 3,000 Indians dying en route by starvation and disease. Some of the deaths were murders by American soldiers. After 10 years studying the moon, the German astronomers Johann Madler and Wilhelm Beer published their research in Der Mond, the moon, claiming that the moon had artificial constructions, and their book even provided maps showing the locations of these structures. 1. A Patriot's History of the United States, 2. Elder Gods in Antiquity. 1839 AD, 57:33 AM. A massive continental earthquake occurred from Turkey into Russia. The Opium War began between Great Britain and China. Chinese officials, sickened by the addictions of their people to opium that was used by the British to control the Chinese, these officials destroyed 2,000 chests of opium. The British retaliated swiftly, and the Chinese would again be subdued in 1842, when the British occupied Hong Kong. The astronomer de Cuppis recorded that he witnessed a massive object moving through the inner solar system. 1. Book of the Damned. 1840 AD, 57:34 AM. An earthquake created the almost 2-mile deep Ahura Gorge that is deeper than the Grand Canyon. It is a mile wide, and many report that it is more spectacular than the Grand Canyon. The gorge splits the northern part of Mount Ararat in Turkey in half. Sir Henry Rawlinson translated the Assyrian cuneiform texts from analysing the trilingual inscription found upon the Behistun rock in northwestern Persia, Iran. 1. The incredible discovery of Noah's Ark. 1841 AD, 57:35 AM. The Great Seal of the United States, designed by Barton, with the Great Pyramid and Eye and Phoenix, had its die retired. This was 66 years, 792 months, after the War for Independence began in 1775. 1. Gods of Eden.